Alright, we'll divide section 10.1 into 3 parts. Beginning with the interpretation of probability. What does it mean when you say probability? Well, probability is the mathematics of chance. For example, when you're talking about winning a lottery and it says that the chances of winning are 1 in every 150,000 people, that means that if you print 150,000 tickets, one of those tickets is going to be the winner. So if you print 300,000 tickets, that means there would be 2 winners, so on and so forth. So a couple of words that go along with probability. One would be experiment, when you're actually looking and making some sort of observation, just like you're doing an experiment in science lab. Outcome, that is what happens, what could possibly happen when you do the experiment. And sample space is a list of all the possibilities that could happen when you're doing the experiment. And an event is just a collection of those outcomes. So let's say that we're rolling a die. So an outcome could be to roll a 2. Sample space is all of the numbers 1 through 6. And an event would be to roll an even number. So an event would include 2, 4, and 6, rolling an even number. So here, example 1, I've already kind of talked about this. What you're doing is you're rolling a standard 6-sided die and you're recording the number of dots shown on the top face. List the sample space. So S for sample space. Sample space is equal to, I could get a 1, a 2, 3, 4, 5, or a 6. So that's the sample space. List one possible event. Your event could equal roll an even number. So our event would include 2, 4, or 6. So that would be an event. Okay, here we are tossing a coin 3 times and recording the results in order. Well, I've done this several times, so I'm able to write out the results in order fairly quickly. But if you're not so sure, you could draw a tree. So the first coin, you could get heads or tails. From heads, you could get heads or tails again. If you did tails with the first coin, you could get heads or tails with the second coin. Heads or tails. Heads or tails. Heads or tails. All this is the third coin. Heads or tails. So if you follow those, you could have heads, heads, heads. Next branch down, heads, heads, tails. Get rid of those crazy little markings that keep showing up. You could get heads, tails, heads, heads, tails, 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 heads, heads, tails, heads, tails, 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 heads, or tails, tails, tails. Those are the 8 possible outcomes, and they make up your sample space. So give one possible event. Your event could be exactly two heads. So the outcomes that would be in this event would be heads, heads, tails, heads, tails, heads, tails, heads, heads, and that's all. exactly 2 heads. So in this case, what we're doing is we're spinning the spinner twice and recording the colors that it lands on. So the sample space could be red, then red again, red, then blue, red, then yellow, red, and green. Or you could land on yellow first, yellow and red, yellow and blue, yellow and yellow, yellow and green. Or you could land on green first, green red, green blue, green yellow, or green green. You can land on blue first, blue red, blue blue, blue yellow, or blue and green. So there's your sample space. It contains 16 items. List one possible event. How about our event would be the same color on both spins. So the event would include the outcomes red red, blue blue, green green, or yellow yellow. So sample space is all the outcomes, and then list an event, which would just give you a subset of those outcomes, a few items from the list of outcomes. So we're going to roll 2 standard dice and record the number appearing on each die. So this one, you have 6 possibilities for the first roll, 6 possibilities for the second roll. So your sample space here will have 36 items in it. And let me get my book, because this is actually in your book. Since there are 36, it's kind of long to write out. So that is on page 635, and it's D. On page 635, D. So those outcomes are like 1 1, 1 2, 1 3, 1 4, 1 5, 1 6, so on and so forth, all the way to 6 6. So list one possible event. How about that we get a sum of 4. So we roll the 2 dice, and the sum of the 2 dice is 4. So that would be 1 3, 2 2, and 3 1. 3 ways to get a sum of 4. So how about if you are tossing a coin and then rolling a 4-sided die? And we want to list the sample space. So tossing a coin, you could get heads or tails. So there are 2 possibilities there. 4 possibilities for the 4-sided die. So we're going to have 8 outcomes in our sample space. So I could have heads with a 1, heads with a 2, heads with a 3, heads with a 4. I could have tails with 1, tails with 2, tails with 3, tails with 4. So that's your sample space. Alright, so the probability of an event is anywhere from 0 to 1. 0 meaning it's impossible for that event to occur. 1 meaning that that event will always happen. And then in between gives you varying degrees of how likely something is. The closer it is to 0, the less likely it is to occur. The closer it is to 1, the more likely the event will occur. And this is where we'll end, and we'll pick back up on section 10.1.